Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to the life and chess games of Magnus Carlsen. So in this series we're following Magnus Carlsen's life, Magnus Carlsen's chess game through his career, and today I wanted to show you really historical moment. It was the game between Magnus Carlsen versus the beast from Baku, the legendary Garry Kasparov. The game was played in 2004 in Reykjavik, and the historical moment of this game I think has a huge importance in chess, because we had never the opportunity to see a game between, for instance, Bobby Fischer versus Garry Kasparov. In my opinion, Garry Kasparov, Bobby Fischer, and Magnus Carlsen are the three best chess players in history. You can agree, you can disagree, that's just my opinion, and I have set up a poll in which you could have voted and decide who is the best chess player in history from the three of them, and you voted that Bobby Fischer, in your opinion, is the best chess player in history, then Magnus Carlsen, and then Garry Kasparov. My opinion is that still Garry Kasparov is the best chess player in history, then Magnus Carlsen, and then Bobby Fischer. If Magnus Carlsen, that's again just my opinion, lasts for 15 years like Garry Kasparov last, I think then we can say that Magnus Carlsen is the best chess player in history. But again, that's just my opinion. It's really unthankful to give such ideas, give such comments, because the chess games of Garry Kasparov were, of course, in a different era, and the chess games now of Magnus Carlsen are really in sort of a computer era. But it was a great game back in 2004. At least we had some kind of a clash between the two best chess players in history, between Magnus Carlsen and Garry Kasparov. We didn't have any other games. It would be cool that we would have a time machine and watch Fischer facing Magnus Carlsen, Magnus Carlsen facing Kasparov, Kasparov facing Fischer. And I've been also asked why I don't consider Vishy Anand maybe to be one of the best chess players in history. Okay, we can also say that Vishy Anand could be in the top three. He had also great games, but that's again just my opinion. I don't want to disrespect anyone, but still I think that Garry Kasparov's era was very important in chess. The Bobby Fischer era that lasted, okay, it lasted only for 3 years, but he was so dominant, Bobby Fischer, and Magnus Carlsen is so dominant these days that I think these three guys deserves really to be on this list of these three best chess players. And be prepared, we have now the game Magnus Carlsen versus Garry Kasparov. Garry Kasparov, already a respected grandmaster, of course, back in 2004, although he lost his world championship title against Vladimir Kramnik. On the other hand, Magnus Carlsen was in 2004, he had only 13 years, so it wasn't maybe the clash of the titans, because Magnus Carlsen wasn't, of course, in his top level. He wasn't in his peak rating. But again, I'm pointing out we don't have other games. These were the only games that have been played between Magnus Carlsen and Kasparov, and that's why I decided to show you this game. So far, let's see what happened. Here we have d4 played by Carlsen and d5 by Kasparov. We have c4, we have c6, knight to f3, knight to f6, the Slav defense, and after knight to c3, we have a very aggressive setup by white, because here Kasparov responded with a semi-Slav setup, and but I still think that the best way here to proceed is simply to take. Then white is forced to play the move a4, preventing some b5 ideas, and in some occasions black will then challenge white center with the move c5. So still common theory, both of these variations are good, but here Kasparov decided to go with the move e6, and here Carlsen played bishop to g5. Knight from b to d7. This move is a preparation because we want to have this reloading system around the square f6, and we want to play much more active with our queen, so the queen wouldn't be stuck to the defense of this knight on f6, because there is this positional threat to take out the knight on f6, and then you have to double pawns, and you could have a weakened pawn structure in front of your king. So in the game e3 played by Carlsen, queen to a5. This is a very tricky move, because here knight to d2 was played by Magnus Carlsen, also aggressive move, and I still think that the best way to proceed here is the move d takes c4, because you're discoverably now attacking the bishop on g5, so white would be forced to take out here the knight on f6. That's the main problem. Then after knight takes f6, I still think, okay, white can play knight takes c4, we can go queen to c7, but in this early stage of the game, I think black is slightly better. The evaluation here is about 0.0, so it's equal, but from this human point of view, I still like more black's position, because we have the bishop there. The position still can get opened, because we don't have statics in the center, so we could maybe open the position with some potential c5 moves. And the problem is here, if you don't take out the knight, if you play, for instance, something like bishop to h4 here, if you don't want to give up your bishop here, then b5 is very dangerous. You see, we have fixed now the position around this pawn on c4, and we have the possibility to continue to push with the move b4. So that's my opinion. I think that d takes c4 is perfectly fine here. In the game, Kasparov tried bishop to b4, playing aggressively against Magnus, challenging here this knight on c3, and here queen to c2 play by Magnus, and castling by Kasparov. We have bishop to e2. You see how dangerous it can be if you try, for instance, bishop to d3, then you get now this move d takes c4, and your bishop is attacked. You have to react, and you lose another piece. So that's why Magnus played the correct move. He played bishop to e2, not allowing this types of tactics. And here Kasparov played a very interesting move. He played the move e5, cracking the position in the center immediately. And Magnus, I think, played a very interesting line here. He played castling, allowing now Kasparov to take the pawn on d4. After e takes d4, he played this intermediate move, which is a great move, I think, knight to b3, because we want to take out with the knight. We don't want to have this isolated pawn situations. If you, for instance, take with the pawn, then d takes c4 would be also positional possibility here by black, and then you would have an isolated pawn on d4, which could be a long-term weakness maybe in white's position. But that's why knight to b3, queen to b6, and here Magnus still decided to play this move e takes d4. In my opinion, maybe knight to d4 is better, because you're keeping your position compact, you're getting your knight more centralized. Now the idea is maybe to get this knight on a very active square on f5. Still we can challenge this bishop. a3 b4 is the possibility. So now if d takes c4 happens, we can recapture here with the bishop, and we don't have weaknesses in the position. Maybe Magnus was scared a little bit about this move c5, but here I think knight to b4 solves all of the positional problems. If queen to d8, then we have knight to f5. This is a very nice square for the knight. After knight to e5, here there is a good move c takes d5. If you, for instance, take with the queen, then I think bishop takes f6 is a good move. Then we could weaken the pawn structure again in front of black's king, doubling up pawns. This would be really a messy position, and still we could have possibilities then to play something like rook to d1, attacking the queen on the d file. Still there is also this weakness on c5. Maybe Magnus didn't see all of that, but okay, he played e takes d4, nothing is lost, but I just think that knight takes d4 is better. In the game, d takes c4, played by Kasparov, of course. As I said, he is creating this weakness, this isolated pawn, and Magnus simply took bishop takes c4. a5 with the preparation to play the move a4, kicking away the knight on b3, and then maybe to take out this weak d4 pawn. That's why Magnus had to block the pawn structure on the queen side with the move a4, and now queen to c7. This is a good move by Kasparov, I think. Here I think Kasparov has equalized the game in an early stage of the game. As black, of course, you want to have simplifications. Here, the preparation is now because Magnus has played here this knight on f3, knight to d2, knight to b3. Now this knight is not protecting anymore this h2 square, so that's why here Kasparov prepared here this move bishop to d6, which this h2 pawn is really a long-term weakness. So Magnus tried rook to e1, also a good move, getting use of this open file. The only open file is of course the e file, and now h6 played by Kasparov. We have bishop to h4, bishop to d6, and here Magnus played the tricky move. He played the move h3. It seems now that g5 is dangerous, because then you have to go bishop to g3, and then bishop takes g3 with this queen takes g3. White would lose a pawn, but that's not the point. The problem is you have here after this move g5, you have the possibility to play the move queen to g6. This would be deadly for black. I think it would be game over, because here king to h8 has to be played, and now simply queen takes h6. After king, maybe knight to h7 or king to g8, we could simply take out the pawn. Here you can simply take bishop takes g5, and now all of these pieces are really aiming against black's king. I think, as I said, this would be game over. So that's why after the move h3, Kasparov played the move knight to b6, attacking the knight. And here again Magnus prepared some dangerous tactics against Kasparov. He played the move bishop takes on f6. Now the knight has left the defense of this knight on f6, and the idea is to weaken the pawn structure again with some potential g takes f6 moves. But okay, here black can take out this bishop on c4, and here Magnus, who played knight to e4, sacrificing the bishop. And the good thing is that Garry Kasparov didn't go for the bishop, because it would be really deadly. Let's see the possible continuation. After g takes f6, you get knight takes f6. If you go on, with your king on h8, then you get queen to h7, a checkmate. You will be forced to play something like king to g7, but now queen to h7 anyway. You have to take with the king here the knight on f6, but now you get simply queen takes h6, the check. After king to f5, you get g4, and it's checkmate. So of course Kasparov saw all of that, but it was really cool to see how great tactically Magnus was prepared. He played really aggressively against Garry Kasparov. You have to play like that if you want to make something happen. Great attack here by Magnus. After the move knight to e4, so Kasparov didn't take. Kasparov played the move bishop to h2 with the check, king to h1, and now we have a mistake here by Garry Kasparov, knight to d6, and I think this wasn't a good move by Kasparov. He should have proceeded with the move knight to b6, staying with this connection. You have to have the queen connected with the bishop. There is this line, maybe white could try to play the move g3 in order to close the position, but then the game becomes really complicated, and I think that the black is better here. If you try to lock the bishop, then queen to d7 is a very tricky line, because if you take king takes h2, then you get queen takes h3, king to g1, and now we can take g takes f6, knight takes f6 doesn't bring you so much anymore, because after king to g7, this idea to play to deliver checkmate is not working anymore, because the queen is a good defensive piece. And the more important thing for black here is that we have taken out the light square bishop. Now there are these light square problems in front of white's king. White could be even could get checkmated with this light square bishop, if this light square bishop of course gets into the game. Here the best way probably for white is to proceed with the move knight to e8. I've analyzed this particular line. Here I think black can even take rook takes e8. After rook takes e8, we have a dangerous move bishop to g4, discoverably attacking the rook. If you take out the rook on a8, then you get bishop to f3 and you get checkmated. So you have to get your rook back to e3. But now knight to d5, attacking the rook would be a very dangerous line for white. And after queen to e4, I think the best way is simply to take out the rook. After f takes e3, the pawn structure is again weakened. You have only this one pawn, it can be taken, so that's why you would be forced to play queen takes e3. But now bishop to e6 is very, very dangerous for white here, after something like knight to c5, in order to get this knight somehow into the game. Bishop to d5, and this would be the best piece on the board. Combined with the queen, we have really some dangerous tactics with some deflection motifs. Rook to e8, deflecting the queen from the defense of this g2. I think white is lost here, and that's what I've analyzed after this move, knight to b6. But in the game, Kasparov makes, I think, a mistake. He plays the move knight to d6. It's also an aggressive move, but Magnus gets out of this tactical mess very good, I think. He played the move king takes h2 anyway, because after knight takes e4, that's what Kasparov calculated probably. But the problem is you have this intermediate move, bishop to e5, attacking the queen. Again, you have to do something. You have to cover with your knight. That's the more important thing. You have to get pinned again. And here Magnus plays the move queen to c5. I think again that maybe d5 here immediately is a better line, because okay, white has the pin, white has also now the pin on the c file, so black needs to get this rook into the defense. But now knight to d4 is very, very dangerous. You don't want to play, of course, c5, kicking away the knight, then you get knight to b5, attacking the knight, and this knight will be trapped. You have to give up some material, so that's why the best way is to get out of this pin. And after d takes c6, we have b takes c6, and now knight takes c6. The more important thing about this move, that this move comes with a tempo. Again, black has to react, the rook has to go somewhere. Maybe you have to go rook to e8, but I think this is a better line. In the game, instead of d5 immediately, Magnus played the move queen to c5. This allows now black to get a tempo, rook to d8. Now d5 is a little bit too late, because we have now queen to d7, and after knight to d4, it's a little bit different move order. But you see the problems now after knight to f5. This is a very important square for the knight. You see the importance of that square in a couple of moves, because this knight is covering here the d4 and also the d6. If this white knight jumps on the square, we can simply trade off the knights and go into a drawish endgame, sort of, because we have opposite colored bishops here, the bishop on c8 and the bishop on e5. So the main idea is to trade off as many pieces as you can from black's perspective, although you're losing here the pawn on c6. But if the position gets simplified, then with this opposite colored bishops, it's really a draw. And here you, in this particular line, Carlsen allowed Kasparov to go into this line. After knight to f5, we have d takes c6. Okay, b takes c6, knight takes c6. Still you're gaining a pawn, and this is a good position for Magnus Carlsen. But now after rook to e8, here bishop, rook to d1 was played, attacking the queen. The queen goes to e6, the only good square that you have for the queen. And now Magnus played rook to e1, and this was again maybe slightly inaccuracy by Magnus. I think that he had a better move, again, just to avoid some trades of this knight. So this is the main idea, the main winning idea for white here is now to not get rid of the knights of the board. We could get maybe rid of the bishops, this would be good, but not get rid of the knights, because we're getting into this opposite colored bishops endgame. So you don't want to do that if you're pawn up. So you want to stay with many pieces on the board to complicate positions to win this endgame somehow, because we have an extra pawn. So we don't want to simplification. So here after rook to e1, it allowed now again Garry Kasparov to go into this bishop to b7 line with here knight to d4, and now you see Garry Kasparov simply traded off this knight after queen takes d4. Okay, still black is a pawn up, but here it's really a drawish position. Basically black would have to make several blunders to lose the game here, but here this move rook to e1 is not so good. I think Magnus should have proceeded here with the move bishop to c7. because now after bishop to b7, now we have the move knight to d8. We don't have to trade off the knights. You cannot take, of course, the knight. The knight is very well protected by the bishop and the rook on the d file, but still now we have the possibility to play the rook to e1. But now at least we are staying with the knights on the board. So after something like queen to c8, now rook to e1 is perfectly fine. Now if the rooks are traded off again, we can simply play rook to e1 with some dangerous threats on the 8th rank. So here after rook to e1, as said, the continuation was bishop to b7, knight to d4, knight takes d4, and now queen to d4. And unfortunately for Magnus, this is a more drawish position than the last one, and here Kasparov simply goes queen to g6, attacking the g2. Maybe again f3 stays a little bit complex, creates complex positions. At least you're not simplifying the position even more, but now Magnus played the move queen to g4, and it's really now leading into a draw. Queen takes g4, h takes g4. Again, it wasn't the best of continuations. Now we have a simplified position in which it's really a draw. Here bishop to c6 played by Kasparov. We have b3, f6 kicking away the bishop to c3. Here rook takes e1, and now bishop to d5. Very important, attacking here this b3 weakness. You have to cover. You see Magnus Carlsen pieces are really passive now in the game. King to f7 played by Kasparov. We have king to g3, rook to b8, which forces now Carlsen to proceed here with the move b4. We have a takes b4, bishop takes b4, and now bishop to c4. This is a good move, preventing this pawn to get on this a6 square. In the game a5, we have bishop to a6, now f3, and now king to g6. We have king to f4, and now h5, trading off even more material. So now Garry Kasparov is really searching for simplifications. Here g takes h5 was played, king takes h5, and now bishop rook to h1, attacking the king to g6 again, and then here bishop to c5. But it's not a problem here. Kasparov has a good move, good attacking move. Rook to b2, attacking here this b2 weakness. King to g3 was played, and now rook to a2, staying simply on this second rank. King to f7, rook to c1, g5 was played, and now rook to c7. It's not a problem because we have rook king to g6, and here after rook to c6 we have now a forced draw, because here Garry Kasparov played the move bishop to f1, attacking here this g2, and the only thing you can do is cover with the bishop on f2. In this position, both of these players agreed to draw. In the next move, Kasparov can take out here the pawn on a5, and it would be really a thematical draw. So great game, I think, by Magnus. Although he made this slight inaccuracies, you saw also that Kasparov had also some chances. It was really a great tactical, I think. We'll see also another game played by Garry Kasparov against Magnus Carlsen from the same tournament in Reykjavik. In the next video we'll analyze that game. But I still think it was a great accomplishment by the 13-year-old Magnus to play one of the best chess players in history, Garry Kasparov, and he really played a great game, a great opening line, a great tactical line, prepared also some checkmate threats against the beast from Baku. Great attack, and this game really deserves to be here on this very nice chess list. As I said, you can check out my other Magnus Carlsen's video from the series. Here's the link. You can check out his whole career from the beginnings, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.